Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. Got an exciting live stream today. We're going to be talking about security and how none of us click on that security tab on GitHub. And there's so much more to that. And we're going to learn from Sam, who's an expert in this area. Sam, please give yourself an intro and a shout out. It's just so great to geek out with you again.
Thanks very much, Eddie. Great to be here. So my name is Sam Stepanyan. I'm an application security consultant and architect. I work in financial services in the City of London. I'm an ex-developer, so I come from software development background. I switched to security space back in 2006 and have been leading OWASP London chapter since 2015 and became an OWASP Global Board Director last year. Yeah, that's me. I also available Twitter, just like Eddie. I tweet a lot, but I mostly tweet about security problems and things that people need to be aware from the security perspective. My Twitter handle is SecureStep9, so invite you to follow me.
I will share that in the chat right now as well, so everyone can go follow Sam. So yeah, security, security is not going to affect me. I'm using an ORM that's got protection. I'm using a framework that's got some sort of magic happening in the background. And if we look at our GitHub repo, there's a security tab and something's enabled. It's no one wants my project, right? That's how it works, Sam, right? They just want to go after big projects. My small project's safe.
Yeah, that's the biggest misconception, right? Because most people, when they think about security, they're like, why should I be targeted, right? So why am I? And the bad news is everyone's targeted, and a lot of the attacks nowadays, they are automated. So it's not like a particular person says, there's Eddie, let's go after him, right? People will just basically, they will find whatever applications are available, and they will, especially if they're public and the code is on GitHub, right, they will start digging around and finding how they can exploit it. If this application actually deployed somewhere, then it's even worse, right? So there are numerous security breaches, data breaches of companies who, for example, left their API keys and other credentials lying around on GitHub. There are lots of security incidents when some organizations left some of the GitHub repos private when they were public when they're supposed to be private. So it happens all the time, and I think it became so bad, and particularly with the hard-coded secrets, right, in repos, that GitHub said, okay, enough is enough. We're going to do something about it, because there are lots of commercial solutions which would basically help look for hard-coded secrets, and GitHub now actually includes that feature built in, as well as few other security features, Eddie, that we can talk about.
That sounds good. Let's get started. You're absolutely right. I mean, I think a lot of people, including myself, think, I haven't got any API keys in there. I haven't got any passwords. I'm safe. But there's just I think the attack vector, the surface area could come in from so many different angles that there is just so much to it. Just like with there's so many different JavaScript like UI libraries, there's so many different angles that we need to protect ourselves from a security perspective. So Sam has a list of things to go through in this live stream, and I'm super excited. So Sam, where do you want to start?
Right. So Eddie, I see you already have one of your projects open, which is your health check. And it looks like this is not the first time you clicked on the security tab, because I can see a few things in there you've already enabled, right?
I think, to be honest, this is the default. I don't think I clicked on this to change it. Or maybe after our last discussion, I might have clicked on a few things, potentially.
Looks like you have actually enabled it, because by default, everything there is disabled.
Ah, we
so
see.
there's absolutely nothing. It looks like you've already been through this, right? So let me first of all walk you through the security tab, right? And I think even before we start talking about security tab, one very important thing is to mention about GitHub, and everyone, all the developers listening to this live stream right now, it's very important to talk about authentication. So how do you log in to GitHub? The reason why it is important, and GitHub recently pushed everyone to move into the multi-factor authentication, is because there were lots of GitHub repo takeover attacks recently.
Right.
So there were several what we call in security industry supply chain attacks, and
Okay.
basically this happened when some of the quite popular packages, so that was Python packages or JavaScript packages, NuGet packages, right? What happened is that bad guys or let's say bad actors, threat actors,
Bad actors, bad people.
bad people. They let's say they discover this. They discover the credentials for whatever the reasons. For example, if a developer use GitHub credentials that they reuse somewhere else, how many
Okay.
of you actually use the same password everywhere, right? Again, password hygiene is something that
Yes.
is to be talked about. Again, if you're not using a password manager, I recommend to use password manager, which will generate
Yes.
random password everywhere, right? There are lots of free ones available. But basically, what the attacks that I'm talking about, the way how they happened, is that the attackers managed to discover they use them a password to the GitHub repos of some of the very popular packages. And what they did, they started planting some malicious code in there. So everyone who was using these packages, they started downloading
Wow.
malware, right?
Oh,
And there are numerous examples of
wow.
this kind of situations where you say, hey, I'm writing this up, I'm going to use this library, and I'm just going to include this package. And then you end up with some unwanted surprise, right? So some of them
Yes.
might be surprises that you can't even see. For example, one very popular thing that attackers do nowadays, they plant cryptocurrency miners. So while you
Ah,
go and deploy your app into Amazon, and then you get your bill at the end of the month and say, this sounds quite expensive, right? This AWS hosting is getting more and more expensive. But the reason why it happens is because probably you pulled a package which had a crypto miner, and unbeknown to you, while your app is out there in the cloud, right, that
wow.
cloud service is actually mining cryptocurrency for someone. So this is a kind of an invisible thing. There were a few visible things as well. For
Okay.
example, there was a case where a repository was intentionally modified by a developer who had a very popular again npm package,
Okay.
and because that person was very against the Russia-Ukraine war, he
Okay.
basically said, okay, I planted a very interesting piece of, I can call it maybe cyber warfare, right, in his code,
Okay.
which said, okay, if the IP address of the person who is looking at the dashboard, because this was about the package which was doing some pretty things on the dashboards
I
and on the
see. Okay.
menus, it would check the source IP, and it would, if your source IP was from Russia or from Belarus,
Okay.
instead of seeing nice looking menus like the ones that
Okay.
we're looking at now, the screen would be filled with "Stop the War"
Oh, I
messages,
see.
right? So again, developers did do that, and again, these are just a couple of cases where you actually need to be very conscious of all the packages, and we're going to talk about packages. But since we started talking about authentication, this is very important thing. Just make sure that you are using MFA. Now,
Yes.
once you have your open source project and you have your product, like here, and you have your own, let's go and have a look through the various security options that are available to you on this tab. So first of all, the first one is security policy, which I see you've enabled. So if you actually click on the security policy, you will
Okay.
see that this is actually provided as a security.md file. So it's a security
Okay.
markdown file, which is placed in your in the root of your repository. What this file does, it tells people how to report security issues to you, right? And this is very important, because why you should have these things is because if security problems are discovered in your project, you should provide a way for people how to report them. Because maybe
Absolutely.
you just spin up this GitHub repo and saying, hey, I would have this wonderful open source project, everyone's using it, and you go on holiday, and then people say, hey, there's a vulnerability, and how do we contact the maintainer and the author to tell them about the problem? And this is quite an important thing to have the security MD enabled. They also have a way to report the issues privately. to the maintainer. Again, this is one of the options that you can enable in the policy. And for example, if you click on the advisories here, you see that there is a new security advisory button here. So if you have the security issues, you can actually publish them. And within the policy, there's also a way for you to enable the report vulnerabilities button. So that is a part of the settings that you can enable on on this tab as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is again a quite important thing. Again, you can. Here you for example, you've done a good thing. So for example, you said don't create GitHub issues to report security vulnerabilities, to keep them private, but you gave them the URL to report. However, GitHub does have a built-in report vulnerability button feature, which you can use and you can configure. It is actually again configured from the same place in the security policy. So once it is there, right, it is very similar to the standard new issue in GitHub. The only difference is that the only person who will find out about this issue is going to be the people who maintain or the administrators, rather than obviously if you go and create a public GitHub issue, everyone in the world will find out about the security vulnerability, which is obviously not a good thing to have. So that's one of the things which is quite important. Again, it's always recommended that you actually do enable that tab and tell people how to do it. Okay, so this is one. If you click back on the security tab, then Eddie, I will talk you through about some other things.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
So when it says view or disclose security advisories for this repository, this is if you have the known issues, you can view them or you can disclose them to other people. Okay. So we can say, I'm aware of this. And we can actually talk about how GitHub is doing it later on and in the stream. But let's go back and look at the other very important things that you have here. So the button that I was talking about actually is this enable vulnerability reporting that you can see there.
Okay, yes.
So if you click on this button, all right, what will actually happen?
I see. You're in settings now. Yeah.
It is exactly in the settings. Yeah.
So
if you click on enable here, yep.
Yes.
And if you now go back to your security tab.
Okay.
Okay. And I'll show you. If you click back on the view security policy.
View security policy.
Here, I think you are not in the report mode. I think for everyone who is, because you are logged in, you are looking at your repo. But for example, if I now go and look at your repo, right, which is health check, right? So,
yes, health check. Yep.
Wait, let me go and have a look. You should also be able to see it if you are logged in, let's say, as an incognito person. 1 second.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And share.
I can share your screen.
Yeah. Let me do that. I will show you what is actually happening if I go to your repo and I click on this button now.
Okay.
Right? 1 second. You can see it straight away. So
yeah.
You can see there's now new. No. You're looking at new security advisory. You're not looking at the policy. So
okay.
You're not looking at the security tab. Yeah, because you're looking at the settings, at the configuration. And are you able to actually open again? I can share, or you can share. If you open the same GitHub URL.
Yeah, in private browsing.
Yeah.
Okay, let me put it in Chrome so people can see the difference.
Yeah.
Here we go. And it's in dark mode as well. People will be happy. So if I click on security, here we go. Okay.
There's a button lights up like a Christmas tree. Okay.
Yes.
So now people know how to do it. Okay.
Got you.
That's the first one.
Perfect.
Right. The next one that we need to talk about is Dependabot alerts. Right.
Okay.
So, Eddie, do you know anything about Dependabot service?
Yes, I know so much about this. Let me tell you, Sam, in about 2.5 seconds. I know so much. And what I know is I get an email and then I delete it. That's
Okay.
That's what I know.
But you are actually getting those, right? Okay, so the Dependabot is a built-in service in GitHub. Again, this is a security service, and that security service will actually look at your packages. They will look at what is inside your
Okay.
project, and it will do two things, right? It has a security function. So if it finds a version of a package which has publicly disclosed vulnerabilities, it will let you know, and which is a security function. Also, it will, if it finds a package which is out of date, it will also notify and say, hey, Eddie, you're using a version of a particular library, and there's actually a newer version available. So
Okay.
you might be interested in updating to the latest version. Again, if there is no security issues, you might think about it and say, okay, maybe I need to test it first, right?
Yes.
But let me ask you something else first.
Sure.
And I'm not going to
Oh,
ask you to click on non-security tab. Do you
okay.
know what's actually inside your software? And how can we find out what are the ingredients of your projects? So there is a tab called Insights. So if you click on Insights tab,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
okay, and in the Insights, if you look at, there's a dependency graph, which is like fourth
Oh,
from the bottom.
yes.
Okay, so this is what we call a software bill of materials. So
Wow.
like you
600.
buy a box of cereal and just look at list of ingredients. Say, are there any E
Yes.
numbers in there? What's inside this thing, right? So that
Wow.
is your software bill of materials. So you can see that you actually have 669 ingredients in
Wow.
this project, and you can see them all with all the versions, right? And how do you know if these versions are up to date, right? And how do you know if these versions have any vulnerabilities? So unless you enable Dependabot, you will have no clue, right? And this is one of the most important things in the and software security, just to make sure that the ingredients that you have are safe, right? No E numbers, please. All right.
Yeah.
So
No E
so,
numbers.
yeah, no bad numbers. If you so this is your software bill of material, and actually you see there's a button which is called Export SBOM, and the
Yeah.
reason why the Export SBOM is available, if you click on it, it will download a JSON file, and that
Okay.
a file is a absolutely regular JSON file that you can view. That actually contains the list of your ingredients, that contains the
Okay.
soft bill of
Wow.
materials. And
Okay.
the reason
Right.
why it's there is because you can give it to someone else. If
I
someone
see.
comes to you and say, hey, you have this wonderful project, but what's inside of it? Have you got things like log4j? Have you got I don't know, a using component which just had a very critical vulnerability discovered? And you're like, I have no idea, right?
Wow.
And this is
Okay.
another problem with dependencies, because every library that you use uses other libraries, right? So there's the
Yes.
dependencies of dependencies, and then they use other dependencies. So this is this giant mesh of dependencies,
Web.
and
Yeah.
and in there, if you how do you even know if there is something vulnerable, and if your project is actually calling a function which can ripple all the way through to all the nested dependencies and actually be exploited by an attacker, right? So this is why this is such an important thing, and this is why you should not ignore your Dependabot warnings. So
Yes.
a lot of the security features, by the way, so obviously I think you are looking at the project which is already in your organization, right? So you have
Yes.
a GitHub org called Eddie Hub Community,
That's correct.
and the way how GitHub structured the security features is that a lot of security features are only available to you when you have an organization. And again,
I
organizations
see.
are available for free as well, right?
Okay.
And there are security features which are available to you for free to use. And basically, there are more things available if you are in or organization. Awesome. Right, I see some people having some trauma about Log4j. That
Yes.
was that was a tough one, but there you go. So Eddie, we're looking at health check, but yeah, do you
Okay.
mind looking at your other project, which is
Oh, I
your
don't know. I'm a bit nervous.
good for first issue?
Okay, let's have a look. Good first issue.
Good first issue. Okay. So
Okay.
if do you have dependabot enabled on that one? So
I
click on
don't
the
know. Let's have a
security.
look.
And you don't. Okay.
Okay.
So what I did, right, when I looked at it, I said, okay, this is actually a good project for me to explore.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, and let me share my screen now. 1
Yep.
second. Let me just go and set this up. What
Okay.
I
Well,
actually
sorry, go on. Sorry,
uh
continue.
no, you were saying something.
No,
Go on.
no, I was just going to say, while you're sharing a screen, I'm just going to say to everyone, thanks in the chat. It's great to see the conversation. Bob, who was early, so great to see you, Bob. Francesco's here, Sentil, Vic Nesh, hope I pronounced that okay. Al Stars, great to see you all here. We had some questions about passwords or magic links. We'll get to those shortly, but the momentum on this is going really well. I know I want to have to look at a lot of my repos afterwards in terms of security. So wow, Sam, I'm super excited. But yeah, share your screen when you're ready and I'll bring it up.
Okay, just give me a second.
No
Okay,
problem.
let me see if I can share my entire screen to make it a little bit easier. And just 1 second, let me
No
just switch.
problem.
Okay, I think ready. You
Yes,
share?
let's go. I see it. I see your
Awesome.
organization.
You see my organization. So I have a few projects in there. So you'll see a very interesting project here called Eddie FSF. So this is actually your
Okay.
your project. And the reason why I had to copy it instead of forking it is
Yep.
because a lot of GitHub security features will not work on a fork, right? Because
Okay.
basically, if you fork somebody else's project, right, GitHub thinks it's somebody else's project first. So some of the security features need to be available to the actual original author, right? So
Makes sense.
so that is the reason. So, not all of them, but there are some of them. Okay, so I've created this copy of your project,
Okay.
right? As you can see here, there are a few interesting things available here under organization. So this is code security and analysis, right? So there are things like private vulnerability reporting that we talked about already. We talked about dependency graph, right? But here's the dependabot. Obviously, you can see here I have it enabled, right?
Okay.
You can actually enable how you want to configure the LEDs, because
I
it
see.
will actually, you can create multiple configurations, and you can say, well, how do you want to get this alerts delivered to you? So there are multiple options available here. Also, if it gets too noisy, I know you keep saying you just delete the emails from Dependabot, but please don't. All right. If you're getting too many of them because you might be overwhelmed, GitHub has this feature called group security updates.
I
Basically,
see.
all it does is just basically groups all alerts from dependent to just one pull request, right? And if you can just review them all and do them, apply the pull request in just one go rather than going through individual ones, right? And Dependabot itself has its own GitHub action, so you can actually tell it to run periodically. That can be daily, weekly, monthly, and
Right.
perform the checks on your dependencies, right? And here is the next bit, which I did enable on a copy of your repo, which is
Okay.
the actual code scanning. You're probably seeing this for the first time,
Yes.
but this is the feature of GitHub, which allows to search the source code of your project and find any vulnerabilities in the source code. So this is the
Right.
code QL, or code query language, and you can see that it runs scan, and obviously I enabled it here, and we will look at the discovered issues in a minute with you. I'm not going to talk about the some of the rules here. Maybe somebody,
Okay.
if we have time. But another very important thing, which again you're probably seeing for the first time, is secret scanning. In order for you to enable secret scanning, right?
Yep.
Again, it can only be done within organization. So if you
Okay.
create organization, move your repos there, then you will be able to enable secret scanning. So what GitHub will do, GitHub will automatically scan your repo for any hard-coded secrets, credentials,
Wow.
API keys, or tokens, right? And also there's another feature, which you can see I enabled on a copy of your repo, called push protection. So push protection will prevent developers from pushing commits which contain hard-coded secrets. So
That's great.
there's a whole bunch of them which are supported. So there's lots of tokens and keys that are supported. So there's AWS access key, secret access key, right? Your session tokens. Here your AI API keys like Anthropic, and there's Atlassian, there's Azure, right? Look at this is all the list of all the various API keys and tokens that GitHub will automatically detect in your code because they have a specific pattern, and it will provide, and you can see what it will actually do, whether it will actually stop the user, right, from committing it, and it has a push protection. So these are all the supported patterns. However, GitHub secret scanning does not just end with its patterns. It will also look for things which actually look like passwords, right, or API tokens. So this is another thing that you can enable separately, and you can go and say, I want all types of secrets, right? So I want to make sure that it's not just the secrets from what they call a known partners, right? So basically, there's all the different companies which have a specific pattern, and that pattern is provided and is recognizable. But it will also discover things which is literally called password or API key or a token. So there you go. This is something I know you're seeing for the first time. So again, highly advised to enable it and save changes. Now, if I look now at the security tab of the copy of your project, again, you can look at the code and you can recognize that this is actually your good first issue finder by Eddie. This is all your wonderful project. I haven't changed a bit in here. All I did, I just copied it, because if I forked it, I wouldn't be able to enable the security features on it, right? And I needed to show it. And of course, the best thing to show it on your own repo. So you could straight away see what can possibly go wrong. So if we click on the dependabot here, you can see it shows 11 here, right? So what are these 11 things? So you can straight away see that the 11 issues, there's one actually close. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 libraries that you use which have high severity vulnerabilities, right? So there's you can see this is OctoKit webhooks.
Yeah.
If I just hover over, it will tell you exactly what it is, what are the versions, right? Okay. Then you have WS, right, which is affected by the denial of service, right? When handling requests to too many HTTP headers, which is quite bad, right? So some people can actually completely nuke your server. I don't know which hosting provider you use, but someone can send an HTTP request with, let's say, 500 HTTP headers, and your application will stop responding to everyone, right? So
it's quite serious.
So these are all denial of service. This one is also uncontrolled resource consumption. Again, you can see these particular vulnerabilities that we discovered. They are all related to denial of service or uncontrolled resource consumption. Basically, in this case, again, an attacker can basically send a malicious request to your application and cause memory on the server to be exhausted. So the application will simply crash and it will display an error message, sorry, no memory available.
It might explain why I did get a really big Vercel bill the other month. I usually paying like $30 a month, and suddenly one month I got like $500. I was like, oh, what happened? We only had 2 more users. So okay.
Exactly. And here's another very, very important one. So this is in the Vite component. Again, you can actually click on every single one, and you can see lots of details on every single alert. So you can see this issue is open. So this kind of appear to you, these alerts, as issues as well. And you can see straight away whether Dependabot can update to a non-vulnerable version or not, because it will try to automatically see whether it can patch your project straight away. So you can see this particular vulnerability affects versions of this library between these versions, right? Starting from version 4.0.0 up to version 4.5.1. However, the vulnerability is patched in version 4.5.2. So if you're able to manually, so basically what Dependabot is trying to do is saying, hey, I'm actually trying to patch this automatically. So what dependabot will actually do, let me show you. Look at the pull requests, right? It actually
I
creates a
get
pull
those
request.
I get those sometimes, but I just close them. Right. Okay. I shouldn't be doing that.
You shouldn't be doing that. You should really be
Okay.
looking at what it is proposing and why it is
Right.
proposing that you didn't. So if you look at here, you don't actually see Vite because it didn't, for whatever reason, Dependabot could not find a way to do this safely. Because I think when they
Okay.
tried to update Vite to that version 4.5.2, there were lots of other dependencies
I
which would be
see.
broken. But for example, let's look at this one. Right. So when it does your bump, and this is what a Dependabot commit will look like.
Wow.
It will
Okay.
say, "Hey Eddie, we advise you to bump your WS WebSocket package from version 8.13 to 8.18.0."
Okay.
Okay, it gives you a compatibility score. So if it's
Okay.
100%, usually that means all good, and you can just merge this PR, right? If you have no idea what's changed, it's like, why should I upgrade to this version, right? What have they changed?
Oh, I love
If you
that.
if you open it and look at it, but straight away you see fix the denial of service vulnerability, right? So you
Yeah.
know this is bad because it's a security issue, right? And you say, okay, what was this bug? The bug said the request with number of headers, including whatever this constant is set to, could be used to crash a web server. Yeah, there you go. And there was a sample exploit. You can see that this vulnerability was actually reported. This is why it's very important to keep that security reporting enabled in your repo, right? So there's someone who reported this vulnerability, all right? And yeah, it's there. So depending on, say, what it will resolve the conflicts on this PR, it's find out that you had checks, right, already on the repo. So it says, hey, everything's there, and this pull request is ready to merge. What did Dependabot actually do? So it essentially just changed in your package log,
Got
right,
you.
the versions of WS here, right, from 8.13 to 8.18. Wherever there's a reference to this package, to the vulnerable version, it replaced it with a non-vulnerable version. So
Okay.
there you go.
Perfect.
You can see the values straight away. And if you look at these
Absolutely.
PRs, and it's like, why should I pay the attention to them, right? So again, you can look at them from this point of view, because this is what everyone else who is looking at your repo will see. So these are
Okay.
public pull requests, right? But they are also private ones, and the private ones are the ones that we just looked at with you here in the security tab. So you can actually
I
see
see.
what are the issues and why you should be doing, because they are high severity. Of course, there are various ways, various things available to you here. So you can order them by most important. You can order them by severity as well, right? So GitHub is already kind of helping you by providing you with a sort. But again, this is all available to you if you are using multiple packages or multiple ecosystem. For example, if your project
Ah,
is using a mix of npm and
like a
Python,
or a mono repo. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
You will see a lot of these in one repo. Exactly, exactly. So this is where you can actually see and learn
Wow.
about, because this is private to you. And again,
Okay.
here you can actually see what is happening here. Um, you can see there's a score, right? So in
Okay.
security, we have a system which is called common vulnerability scoring system, right? So this is actually tells you on a score out of 10 how bad this issue is, right? So if it is 8.2 out of 10, that is a high severity issue,
Right.
which basically tells you about priority and how seriously you should be treating it. So, and if you look at the what they call CVSS based metrics,
Okay.
the way how the score is calculated is based on this thing. So basically, this vulnerability can be attack vector can be accessed via network, so an attacker can connect to it via the network. How complex it is low, so it doesn't require high skill attacker. Privilege is required none. This is very bad. That means an unauthenticated user can log in
Oh,
without being
wow.
administrator. User interaction none. That is also quite bad. That means a user is not required to click on anything or do anything for this vulnerability to be exploited, right? And then you can see whether the scope of the vulnerability changes, right? When it's applied, it's unchanged, and you can see what is actually affecting. So in security, what we talk about when we talk about security can be thought of this triad called CIA. Nothing to do with a three-letter American agency. It stands for confidentiality, integrity, availability, because this is what security is all about. So whenever you have a security issue, you always need to preserve these three things: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So by looking at this triad, you can always say, what kind of vulnerability is this? Because it says confidentiality known, which means it's not affecting your confidentiality, which means if you had some data which should have said confidential, it's not affecting that. Then integrity, it has a low impact. Then integrity, it means that the application remains integral and it keeps doing what it's supposed to be doing. And so you can see there's a low impact here. But availability, it means how available this application is to your users. The impact is high because this is a denial of service issue, right? So someone can crash your application or deny users from accessing it. So there are some vulnerabilities where, for example, it's the other way around. So you can, for example, affect confidentiality and can expose the data. But in this case, it is the high availability issue. You can sometimes see this kind of presentation. This is exactly what is here. This is just a calculator. So that this is basically how it can be attacked. So it's basically network, user, attack vector, right? So this is just a short of this. So attack vector is network, attack complexity is low, privilege is required is none, right, etc., etc.
I'm laughing because when I did see that on your screen, I was like, someone left the console log and it's just outputting something behind some ID behind the scenes, right?
No. Now, again, another thing in security we talk about, that we have something called common weakness enumeration, right? So this is basically a database which enumerates all possible weaknesses, right? And that is maintained by the MITRE, which is a part of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So it's a U.S. government department which is actually collecting both CWEs and CVEs. So the difference between CWE is basically a category. What type of weakness is it? So this is a type of weakness of improper handling of exceptional conditions. CW C755, right? However, the same vulnerability can also have a CVE, which is common vulnerability enumeration, and it does. And you can see here it is a CVE 2023 50728. It's like, oh, let's find out what is this thing. So if we go and Google for it, we will find out. Again, we go to we land on the U.S. government website, which is kind of the authority for this. U.S. government maintains a national vulnerability database. And you can see the detail of this vulnerability. So it actually talks about what is the problem here. So it says there's a webhook event toolset for Node.js. There's a problem caused by the issue within library, and the resulting cause was found an uncaught exception, right, to the which ends the Node.js process, which means someone can send a request which will kill the Node.js process and kill your application.
That's not good.
That is definitely not good, right? So there you go. You can see there are actually two organizations which scored it, right? So you can see that GitHub scored it using this score and this vector, but they NIST scored it like this, and there are lots of links to the actual resources. If you're interested, you want to read about the same CWA applies. So it is a type of vulnerability which is here. Okay, so that is quite important thing for you to know. Now, GitHub themselves, they issue advisories as well. So U.S. government issued advisory. GitHub also issued advisory. U.S. government advisory is very simple because it's just letter CVE followed by dash and the year when the vulnerability was reported, right? And then it's just a number, okay, in that year. However, GitHub also has called GHSA, so or GitHub Security Advisory ID. It looks a bit different, and I don't know why they hyperlinked it here. They actually hyperlinked it here separately. So if you click on it, you will see this is how GitHub presents it. right? So
Wow.
GitHub presents it here. Again, it talks about the packages, right? So this is your app and webhooks. These are all the versions which are affected by this vulnerability. Here's the impact, right? There are some workarounds, and the workaround that all users upgrade to the latest version of Webhook.js or use the one which is backported versions. So there you go. And that is the
Wow.
advisory. And remember, when you look at the advisory tab, this is how it's done. And if we go and have a look at this GitHub advisory database, you will find out almost 20,000 advisories
Wow.
that GitHub themselves are issuing, right? So the reason why GitHub is doing it themselves is because they can, and they believe that they can discover, triage, and address this advisories to the public a little bit faster than the US government, because
Right.
NVD, National Vulnerability Database, is just like any government service, right? Well, this particular government service was a little bit under-resourced, and particularly this year, I think started from February, there was a lot of criticism that they were too busy and overwhelmed to publish all the vulnerabilities. Also, obviously, attackers have been busy in publishing a lot of them. So GitHub said, hey, we're a commercial company. We can actually pay people and deploy people to do this. So there you go. You can see that these are all the GitHub advisories. Again, they have a unique ID if you are interested in what's happening. So this is literally the latest one. So if we click on the ones which are here, we can see how they're discovered and see all the details. So we can see all the references. There's some conversations going on, some advisories going on, right, on forums. So there's links all the way. So this is why it is so important, Eddie, to make
Yes.
sure that your dependable
I am converted. This is going to be my top priority from now on.
Right. Okay. So as you can see here, there are two other tabs here. They don't have any number next to them, right? Which means you're actually quite a good developer, right? Let's have a look. So there were no issues found in the source code. So in this particular repo, didn't have any security vulnerabilities, and also you had no secrets hard coded. So which is very good.
Nice.
Right. So, and you can see everything that you could fix, right? So Dependabot actually pushed to you already, right? So the same, this OctoKit webhooks and OctoKit app, right? So there were two issues, right? The actual OctoKit and webhooks, right? You have a PR, right? And you can go and say, oh, okay, this Dependabot is actually changing something in my project. So what's it changing? You can see it's literally just changing the version numbers here, right? Okay, and obviously because this is a different version here, the SHA-512 hash, right? The signature will be different. So that's all that is different here. There you go. So you can see what it's doing. If you're happy with this pull request, you can just go and merge it. If you want to test it, because it is a PR, you can actually check it out, and you can, as you know, you can go and test it. But this is wonderful because GitHub is already making sure that it provides you with all the information necessary for you to make a decision, right? And the Dependabot has two types of updates that we already talked about. Sometimes it will only bump. Let's have a look at the Svelte one, right? This particular one, I didn't see any security issues as such, right? So if we look at the release notes, obviously you're using version 2.34, but the latest one is 2.43. So you can actually go and see, okay, what have they actually done? What are the changes, right? What are the fixes, right? Are there any bugs? What have they actually fixed? Why should you update? If you say, I'm not really bothered about this, I don't have time to fix this, it's entirely up to you, right? But all the information that is required for you to make a decision is here, because you can see exactly what is the difference, right? What is the new version? And you can see all the commits which went into it, all the fixes that they've done. So there's some fixes in documentation. There is some underlying dependency fixes. There's another dependency, right? So you can review this and make a decision if you want to merge it or not. And again, you can go and have a look at what is actually what will change? Your current package.json state that you're using 234, it will just change it to 243. That's it, right? So it's simple, but it's very efficient. So
Very
that is
efficient. I love
that
that.
that is why this is important. Okay, now two other things that I want to talk about, but your repo does not have, Eddie.
Okay. Sam, before you go into that, can I pull up a question from the chat?
Sure, go ahead.
So Bob, there's loads of great questions. I'll get back to those later on, but one I thought was really good for right now, which is if someone wants to get into security, is there a certification that they should go for?
There are multiple certifications available, and depending on which area you want to go for, because there is a security certification for people like the penetration testers, the security certification for security auditors. There
Okay.
is a certification for managers, right? So there is an organization called ISC2.org, right, which has a lot of security related certifications, right? And you can see there's a multiple certifications available to you. There's certifications in cloud security, certification in security engineering, there's certification in secure software development, right? And there's
Right.
also a generic one. So for example, I actually have CISSP certification. So I had to pass a very enduring 6-hour exam and answer
Wow.
300 questions to become a certified information system security professional. So a bit of a mouthful, but this is kind of one of the very important certifications. CISSP is sometimes referred to as a mile wide and an inch deep, because basically there's a lot of things that you need to know, that you get a lot of knowledge from various areas, but it's not a very deep one. It's just basically just enough
Okay.
knowledge for you to understand the concepts. So this is usually thought of as one of the must-have certification, and it covers all areas. But there are lots of specialist ones as well. So there's now an entry-level certification available. There's administration ones, and the security management, security engineer, architecture, cloud security. You can take a pick. Of course, also there are security certifications available from other bodies as well, right? But IC Square is kind of one of the well-known
Okay.
international cybersecurity certification organizations.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions you want me to answer before we
No,
move on?
no, we'll come back to the other ones later on. No, no, carry on. This is great. I'm
Okay.
trying to make notes, and I'm realizing how much like GitHub does make it easy for us, but even with them making it easy for us, I still don't do it, which is crazy. So I'm definitely going to change my process. I want to pay attention to Dependabot. I got some of those private ones coming in, and I was freaked out. I just closed them. It's going to be safe if I stick my head in the sand. But no, I need to sort them out. So that's something I'm going to do. And we do have some
Exactly.
amazing members in the community. For example, Dan's always updating our dependencies. So I do rely a lot on them, but I should be more aware of this.
Exactly. And
I
of
need to
course, you need to prioritize them, and the security ones should be prioritized. And obviously, you will see which ones are security. If
yes,
you enable, depending if you click on that security tab, and you will see it. And as I just demonstrated on your own repo, right, you had 11 of them to
yes,
act upon quite urgently, right? Now,
exactly.
I wanted to show a different application where you can see a little bit more different things, because obviously you're
Okay.
actually quite good, Eddie. We didn't find any hard-coded credentials or anything like that, but I want to show another application called Juice Shop. So now Juice Shop is an application from organization that I belong to. It's from OWASP. So OWASP is actually a global nonprofit which has the aim to improve software security, right? So we are large community of volunteers all around the world, providing guidelines, standards, and tools for everyone to learn about application security. Another cool thing about OWASP that we also do is we organize meetups and conferences. So for example, I run OWASP London meetup, right? So if you are based in London, you can sign up and come whenever we have an event, right? But if you are not in London, if you are watching from any other city, right, you can just go and search for OWASP and the name of your city. For example, I'm going to be going to Manchester next week, right, to speak there. And there's an awesome chapter in Manchester as well. So there are chapters all over UK and all over the world. There are over 250 chapters all over the world, and they have their communities. They'll have meetups. You're gonna meet lots of great people who are security experts, people who are developers, people who are students, people who are security managers. But all these people want to learn how to be more secure and make their applications more secure. So
Awesome. I
that
just
is
shared the link in the chat. So everyone go check it out. I've been sharing your Twitter
yeah,
throughout while you've been talking as well, Sam. So people can go follow
awesome.
you on there. So
Awesome.
thank you.
So, and we do have lots of projects. So if we go and have a look at OWASP/projects, we have lots of tools. I need to add to S here. We have lots of tools, right? And we have some of our projects that we call flagship projects. They are one of the most important and most mature projects we have, because out of 280, we have around 20 mature
Wow.
projects. And one of these projects is actually called Juice Shop. Now, Juice Shop
Okay.
is a great learning app, because what it is actually intentionally vulnerable e-commerce website which
Right.
sells juices, right? And it's an absolutely awesome open source project. It can be used for learning. It can also be used for training your developers, because it has this capture the flag mod and a scoreboard where you
Nice.
can launch it and compete with your team of developers, how many vulnerabilities you can find, and you score points, and every time you score point you get on a leaderboard. And recently they added some awesome Web3 challenges as well, so there's some blockchain challenges there. So
Oh, that sounds
it's not
amazing.
just your traditional AppSec. So the uh, this team is catching up. So it's absolutely great project. But one of the of course reasons to use it is if I want to demonstrate something which has lots of vulnerabilities. It's a great app, right? So
Okay. Yeah.
again, this is something that you might want to hack in, because you will learn how the attackers actually hack into the application. Because if you install it, right, so you can see in the screenshots, you'll say, hey, this is just a normal online shop, right? What could possibly go wrong, right? There is a great guide which comes with it, the companion guide, and it's available for you either to buy as a book, or you can just read it for free online.
Awesome.
And it does talk about different vulnerabilities and different hacking challenges. So these are all the vulnerabilities which are in there, and basically you can go through these vulnerabilities and discover all these issues in there. But the reason why I'm using this is because I can show you the vulnerabilities in there. So if I click on the security tab here, you'll see something a little bit different, right? So you'll see first of all the 88 code scanning issues. And look at all this. There's tons of
Wow.
hard-coded credentials straight away. There's the template object injection, there's code injection, there's type confusion attack, right? There's a server-side request forgery. There's all the things you've probably never heard of, right? This is a very interesting vulnerability called database query built from user-controlled sources. Again, that's
Okay.
a mouthful. But this is
Wow.
actually a SQL injection, right? So if you look at it, you'll actually realize that there's a database query which is built from the user-provided data, because there is an ID here which is coming straight from the
Oh,
request body. And if you modify it, that is, and it's unchecked, there's no input validation, which means that attackers can break into your
wow.
database and break into your application. But check this out, right? So because look at the hard-coded bearer token here. One, right? And you can just go through all of this. So you can see that GitHub CodeQL or code scanning feature discovered lots of these in the code, right? All over the place. Oh, look at this! This is a password, right? And so so it's absolutely wonderful. And with a few things that you don't understand what they are, there will be an explanation provided to you as well. So it actually tells you, hey, this is where the location of the vulnerability, this is the file and the line number where the vulnerability is happening. Sometimes it will show what we call a source and the sink, so where it starts and when it ends. For example, if there's a user input, right, you'll say, okay, where does it end up, right, and why it is affected. And you will see a recommendation, you will see some examples and how you can fix. So all this is available, and you can see references. Lo and behold, there's a reference to OWASP, and we have a code injection guidelines here, which actually explain how this vulnerability manifests itself, and what you can do to remediate it or fix it. So there you go. So
Wow.
this is how bad things can go in a vulnerable app. And again, if we go and have a look at the Dependabot here, you will see there's tons of critical, high. You can see how many
Wow.
issues are in there, including issues in Express, right? Issues in JSON Web Token, vulnerable to signature validation bypass, right?
Wow.
Tons of problems. So again, this could be in your application, and
Yes.
you know nothing about it now, but you should be enabling this and learning about how to make your application more secure. GitHub is usually, as I already showed you, provides a very good explanation. Whenever it can, Dependabot will do a pull request if it can, because, for example, here the reason why it couldn't do it, because it could not determine the currently installed version, right?
Okay.
They couldn't find the package logs or JSON, for example. But again, it provides you with enough guidance. It says, okay, these are the affected versions by this vulnerability, but in this version is patched, right? So
Right.
if you are using Socket.io library, you just set it to this version, and that this vulnerability is patched. Again,
Nice.
if you're interested, all the data is available here, right? So you can go and check it. Now, of course, a lot of things, the security concepts can be quite new to you. Again, on OWASP, we have tons of resources for you to learn. A couple of projects that I want to bring everyone's attention to. There's one which is called OWASP Proactive Control. So we have OWASP
Okay.
top 10. Everyone probably knows us
Yes.
for OWASP top 10. So
Yes.
OWASP top 10 is a list of top 10 most critical, most prevalent vulnerabilities, right? And this is how OWASP is known. But I think for developers, a much more useful top 10 is a different one, because these are all the things, all the vulnerabilities that attackers can exploit to break into your application, right? To hack your application. However, what can you as a developer do to avoid this, right? You don't want to go and basically say, oh, all these other bad things can happen, because you're a developer, right? You're not a security person, right?
Yep.
So here we have another great project, which is called Proactive Security Control, and it has top 10 things that you as a developer should be doing. And see what you should be doing. You should be defining security requirements. If you're working on a project and you don't have security requirements, you should be doing it. You should be using existing security frameworks and libraries. You have to secure a database access, encode and escape all data, validate all inputs, implement digital identity correctly, enforce access controls, protect your data everywhere, implement security logging and monitoring. Another very important thing, if your application does not have any security logging, then if an attack happens, a breach happens, it would be impossible to actually do
Track
any
it.
investigation, right?
Yes.
And find out what
Interesting.
happened, right? And another quite important one for developers is the exception. I need to probably open the PDF file, right? So obviously all the guidelines are actually available as nice PDFs, so you can download them. There is actually a newer version of the proactive controls v4 here, so you can access it here as well. So there is a there's a more recent one as well, which is this year. I think it's not yet released, but it will be released soon. But again, because all OWASP projects are open source, right, and everything's on GitHub, you can actually go and review and collaborate and contribute as well. So you
Love
can see the
that.
work actually happening on this project already, right? And the next project that I want to tell you about is called OWASP cheat sheets. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm pretty sure developers are going to love it, because life is
Yes.
short. You need to cheat, right? So we have cheat sheets for anything, right?
I didn't
Do you
know
want
this.
do you
Wow.
want to
Okay.
know how to do Ajax security? Do you want to know how to implement access control? Do you want to learn how to implement authentication securely, right? For example, what we're talking about, like, for example, JWT tokens, right? How do you work with them securely, right? Well, there you go. You have all the cheat sheets available to you, right? All the different problems and how to prevent bad things happening to your tokens. How to implement logging correctly, right? All the different examples, what you should be logging and where you should be logging, right? These are all the
Right.
events that you should be logging. So there's lots of recommendations here. And as you can see, this is also on GitHub, right? You can fork it straight away. You can star
Nice.
it, right? And you can go straight to it, and it's open source and it's on GitHub. That's wonderful.
Perfect. Yeah, that is awesome. I love the logging idea because you were saying do more logging, and I was like, okay, yes, if you can investigate later. But I never thought about what to log. I'm probably missing some important information that needs to be logged and so forth. So it's great that you've got those cheat
Exactly.
sheets.
Grab
Amazing.
cheat sheet and straight away, I want to do logging. What do I do? Right, straight away, I want to do authentication. I'm writing on a mobile app, right? What kind of things should I be concerned about, right? So, what do I
Absolutely.
need to secure, right? And it's all there, a nice, short and sweet cheat sheet for you.
I love that. Could you just share that link in the in a private chat to me, and I can then drop it into YouTube
Yeah, yeah,
because
sure.
that is super useful. People are asking in the chat the link to that. I've been sharing various links to OWASP and Meetup and stuff, but that one I don't know if I'll be able to find it. So in StreamYard there is a private chat. If you drop it in
Yeah,
there, I will.
just done it, Eddie.
Perfect. I will copy and paste that into on my screen as well and into the chat as well. And everyone, if
There you go.
you're enjoying this, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to or follow Sam on Twitter. I have been sharing that in the chat as we go along. Do follow Sam on Twitter to get these tips and see what talks he's doing. And I remember tweeting about the what's it called? Is it the YubiKey? I have it
Yes.
somewhere. And then you shared a video from like quite a few years ago, but it was just so useful. And I was like, wow, like I thought my
So,
accounts were secure, but I need to do more.
Eddie, remember you said, I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. Now,
Yes.
these are my keys. See, there's my house keys
Wow.
and my car keys. Here's my YubiKey. It's always with me. Right?
That's
So
awesome.
you have no excuse, right? If you ever lost your house keys, your car keys, right? This is a YubiKey and this should be right next to them.
But I should do two, like you said. So have one like at home in a safe place. Therefore, I have
That is
have a
correct.
backup.
Always have a backup. Rule number 1 of all security.
Yeah, no,
Always have a backup.
that's something I'm going to set up. I've got one. I need to order a second one so I can set those up. I like it how you can do it with your phone. That you can just really, you even with. I think I saw when I was doing some research. I saw even with your Mac or Linux, you can actually your encrypted disk can be. It just looks amazing. I think it should be a requirement for everyone to have it. It just makes so much sense.
Indeed,
To
and
do it.
again, for people who don't know, that YubiKey is a hardware device, right? And that device provides you with a secure way of authenticating, right? So it's an
Yes.
out-of-band authentication. In terms of the physical YubiKey that I just showed you, and I think Eddie, you got one as well
I have the
from
same
GitHub,
one as you.
right?
Yes.
Right. So it's a USB device. So instead of typing your password when you authenticate, you insert the key into your computer and you have to touch it, right? So that is how you log in. You don't have to enter any passwords. And there are reasons why this is so much more secure than typing your password because uh, there is an organization which is called FIDO Alliance, and they work really hard on this standard. You also probably heard of passkeys. So again, it's the same
Yes.
security alliance which worked on this. And there are hardware keys that you are now sharing on screen, Eddie. So they're obviously USB ones, but there are also Bluetooth ones available as well.
Oh, really? Wow.
So
Bluetooth
yeah.
one.
So if you have a device which doesn't have any USB ports, right? There are some weird computers nowadays, right?
Yes.
Or an an iPad with a Lightning, you can actually use a Bluetooth key as well.
That's interesting. I'll have to have a look at that. That's super cool, super good.
Bob
really
was
like
asking
that.
for the license of OWASP cheat sheets. I'm pretty sure you will find it on GitHub and GitHub cheat sheets. It should be Creative Commons. So
Yes, I think it
you
is.
should be able to share
Yes,
them.
Bob's then just said. So yes, Bob, please create a video out of the content. That would be awesome. I'm sure OWASP wouldn't mind you
We
going
would love
through
it. Please do create content. And speaking of content, there's lots of talks available online because OWASP London chapter, we do record and live stream all our talks. So they're all available on our YouTube channel. But this is also true for all other chapters all over the world. And also we run 3 global conferences per year. We have one in America, one in Europe, and one in Asia Pacific. So this year, just 2 months ago, we had a conference in Lisbon, which Eddie unfortunately couldn't attend.
I was so close.
He was in Portugal, but he couldn't attend because he was in Porto with his
I was
family.
the other
But
side
we
of
had an
Portugal.
awesome conference there, and we are going to have another awesome conference in San Francisco in less than 1 month's time. Now, it's actually in 4 weeks' time. Last week of September, we're going to be in San Francisco in the United States, and then there's also a Singapore conference as well. So there will be
amazing. When is the Singapore one?
Singapore one is October. So if you want to attend that, do check it out. And next year, again, we're going to have 3 conferences. Now, OWASP has been running these conferences for a long, long time, and almost 2 decades. And all the talks are recorded and available on YouTube. So if you go to OWASP Global on YouTube, you will find literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of talks on all the topics, which actually includes things like the authentication, right?
Yes.
As I just talked about, dependencies. So lots of interesting stuff there.
What is the chat? Here we go. OWASP Foundation. Here we go.
Yes. There you
Perfect.
go. So,
I will share that in the chat as well. Perfect. Everyone can go subscribe to that too. So that's awesome. Perfect. Sam, that has been, my brain is like at the moment, like there's just so much. I've made a little note. Go, Eddie, go check this out. Go do this. Eddie, click on this and enable it. Do this. So I've made quite a few notes. That has been amazing. I mean, you're so passionate about this. Is great. Your energy really came through. I know you're giving a talk in London, at London JS next Tuesday.
So you are.
Yes.
We both are giving talks.
Yes, I can't wait. We can. Yes, I can't wait to hear your talk in person. I'll be there with my camera taking photos. And I will try and get Sarah will hopefully join and hopefully record both of our talks as well. And we can then send you that content. So that's what I'm hoping to do. And my talk will be about testing. And I saw there's I think there's 200 people have signed up to come to the event. And I was really surprised because I was thinking testing, which is my talk, and security. No one's going to turn up, right? Because that's not the exciting topics that people want. People want rounded corners and React and, all the animations, like all the cool stuff. So I was really surprised that we already had 200 people sign up for the event. It's going to be at Sivo's offices in London. So that's my first time going there. So I can't wait. It's going to be super awesome. So it should be good. I'm so excited. What's the title of your talk?
I'm going to talk about API hacking and securing. So if you are writing any applications with API or consuming any APIs, you might want to find out what could possibly go wrong. And I'm going to talk about some of the large API-related breaches and how APIs were exploited to leak millions and millions of people's records and other sensitive data like credit cards, bank accounts, you name it.
That's awesome. I'm just going to share the event in the chat as well. So this is the event if anyone's around. Bob also says, me too, mind blown. Exactly. It's a lot to take in today, definitely.
That's right. Now, Eddie, I'm not sure how much time we've got, but I know you still have your health check repo on screen there. Do you want to quickly talk about health check? And I might be able to say something about that concept as well.
Sure. Sounds good. So let me go back to the health check repo. So those of you who don't know what the health check is, it is a report on how friendly your open source project is. So to give an example, this is the report that you get. It's checks that we've added, and we're adding more checks all the time. So you can do rechecks for your repo. I can actually bring up the actual website, and I can show you. We've got all repos, so we can see the ones that have been submitted, and we can also see the ones that I've submitted. So if I pick health check, so it's like health check, checking health check. You can see these are the checks that I've done. So I started 16 days ago, and the most recent one is 6 days ago. Let's just run an up-to-date health check. Let's get it from GitHub's API. Let's get the latest stuff. And this is what we've got. So I've got one error, and the error for me is labels. There are not enough custom labels. I don't know. At the moment, we're still in that early phase of what we think is an error, what we think is a warning, and what we think is a success, but things might change. And there is a way to customize that. I am hiding this at the moment for everybody. So this is only showing to maintainers settings. So you can kind of hide certain checks. If you think, you know what, I'm never going to add custom labels, you could hide that. Actually, that one I haven't got enabled at the moment. But if I go straight to Flagsmith, and everyone knows I've been using Flagsmith, which is like a feature flag platform, but allows me to change things really quickly. So optional health checks, I can come in here, instead of doing a config change and commit and run the tests and redeploy, I can just add another one in here straight away. And I can therefore just add that. And I think this is, what was the check? Let me just see. It was labels. I think it is just called labels. I should probably check the code. Let me just double check the code and see. I'm pretty sure it is labels. And then that way I can just enable that and I can also hide it. So we're just playing with what we can hide. The reason why we're not letting everyone hide everything is because people will just hide everything to get a really good score. So we want it to, yes, ID is labels. So let me just hide that on Flagsmith so I can do that without deploying. So, and I will just display name is labels. So the reason why I use feature flags from Flagsmith is an open source project, so go check it out. But the reason why I use it is it allows me to decouple my releases from my deployments and allows me to change values of certain things. So repo limit for most people is 8. But for me, I get 100. So I can have certain rules like that as well. So if I go back there and I refresh the app, I got to check if caching is on. If I go back to the health check and go back to settings, you can now see I can hide labels. So I might hide that from my repo to make it look a little bit nicer. And if I do a recheck, you can see I've got 0 errors on my repo, but I do have 2 warnings. It's saying I should have some more open issues. And I have no good first issues. So it's giving me a warning as well. So that is the open source health check. And a big shout out to Flagsmith for sponsoring this project. Thank you so much. So Sam, tell me, is it good? Is it bad? How does it sound?
So Eddie, it's missing any security checks, right?
Oh, that's true. Yes, good point.
Yes, you are checking a lot of things there, but you are not checking security. And yeah,
True.
perhaps this is something that you should be adding.
Yes,
However,
I love that idea.
For example, today we talked about things like security MD file, which needs to be present.
Yes.
We also talked about dependabot, which needs to be enabled, right? So there's 2 other things that you can add to the checks.
I'm writing that in the chat. I'm going to get someone in the audience to do. I'm saying, please add an issue for security checks. And just as Sam has said, so if someone wants a green square for today, here's the link. I'll share it in the chat, and then please raise an issue for that, because Sam is right. If those aren't enabled, it should be a red flag, and they shouldn't be allowed to be ignored either. So absolutely right. Thank you so much for that, Sam.
Awesome. However, I need to tell you another thing.
Yes.
Is and let me share my screen. That there is actually a security checking tool, which is very similar to what you're doing, but it is more or less an international standard, right? So there's something called scorecard.dev, created by another security organization called OpenSSF, and they are running a lot of security checks, right?
Okay,
so
nice.
There's lots of checks, and here you can see they're basically checking on quite a few things. So they're basically looking at code vulnerabilities, like are they addressed on the build risk assessment, on source code risk assessment, whether you have continuous testing of your project, and in terms of maintenance and how well it is maintained.
Nice.
So you can see there's all the different things that it actually checking. The vulnerabilities, dependency update that we just looked at. How well is the project maintained? Does it have the security policy, security MD? Does it have a license? Does it have a security best practice badge? Right? Does it run a test in GitHub Actions? So does it do fuzzing? Does it do static code analysis to like CodeQL, like I just showed you? Right? There are a few others as well. Obviously, CodeQL is the one from GitHub, right? And there's a few other checks that it's doing. And it is the reason why it's called scorecard, because it actually gives you a score. And here the score is actually the opposite of the vulnerability. So basically,
Okay.
you need to try to score as much as possible out of 10. So if you have 10 out of 10, that means you've done all the checks correctly.
Nice.
Now, this tool,
Wow.
Eddie, I've actually run it because obviously it's available to run as a command line tool, right?
Okay.
Anyone can run it. Okay, yeah, I can run it using Docker. You can see it as the command that I did. I
Nice.
just need to pass it a GitHub token. You
Okay.
call the scorecard stable version. And you provided a repo name. So I gave it your repo as
Okay.
Eddie Hub Community Health Check, right? And you can now see the actual score. So the result is you only scored 4.7 out of 10,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
Okay, and you can see why. So there's explanation. So here's the first check on binary artifacts. Are you storing any binary files in your code? No. So you got
Okay.
10 out of 10.
Okay,
Great.
good.
Do we have branch protection enabled? No. So
Oh,
it's 0 out of
0.
10. Are you running any CI tests and say, okay, so it says 14 out of 15 recently merged PRs were actually checked by a CI test, right? So you before merging, you're actually running automated tests, which is good, 9 out of 10, right? Do you have a security best practice badge? No. So again, that's a 0. Code review, right? As it found actually any reviewed change sets, and then said, okay, 14 out of
Right.
30 were reviewed, so you got a 4 out of 10.
Amazing.
So it's
Okay.
not too bad. Then it looked at contributors. It said, does your project have lots of contributors? It says, yes, 10 out of 10. You have 10
Right.
contributed companies or organizations to this project, right? No dangerous workflow patterns detected in your
Okay.
workflows.
Great.
But there's no update tool. So where's your that was not dependable, right? We looked at it. You're not doing any
Wow.
fuzzing. Again, fuzzing is a testing technique where you send a lot of input, right? A lot of gibberish basically, and see how the application reacts. So it should not crash, right? And license file detected 10 out of 10. You indeed have a license file. Maintenance is great. So you got 10 out of 10 scored because you can see in the last 90 days you have 14 commits and 5 issues, and that is good. That means that someone is looking after and maintaining the repo. So there are commits happening and there are issues answering. Packaging is good, so you're actually packaging the app, which is great, right? But pin dependencies, you don't really have them. Again, the reason why you need to pin dependencies by hash rather than by the version number, because there's a vulnerability which actually can attackers can slip in a malicious version that we discussed, right? If you actually use a hash, that is going to be very difficult for any attacker to substitute a genuine package with malware, because the hash or the digital signature, it will be completely different, right? SAS tool, which is basically the source code code scanning tool, was not run at all, right? So you had no code QL, no code scanning enabled. That's why you scored 0, right? Security policy file was detected. You did create security.md. You didn't have any signed releases at all. It didn't find any releases which were digitally signed. Again, GitHub allows you to do it.
Yes.
It checks on your GitHub workflow tokens as well. So all the tokens that you're using actually had excessive permissions. So you probably on your GitHub tokens, you just click on full permissions and saying, hey, allow this token to do everything, right? Which is bad. You should always limit the scope of your GitHub token to whatever what we call principle of least privilege. So if your GitHub token is only supposed to be reading the repo, right? Just give it read permission.
Makes sense.
If you create a token which is only supposed to be reading repos and creating issues, but not commits, right? Then grant this permissions, because you have tokens which what we call a super admin, right? Or God mod tokens, right? The scorecard says, nope, that's bad. And then it says, okay, do you have any vulnerabilities? Remember those 11 dependent bot vulnerabilities that I showed you? Well, guess what, right? They were detected as well. And that's why your overall score of this repo is only 4.7 out of 10.
But I think we could bump that probably to a 6 or 7, not too hard. There are a few things we can do. And some of them are more difficult, but some of them are quite easy. So that's amazing. And I've just shared in the chat a link to the repo. And while skimming through the repos README for the scorecards, they have a GitHub action. So you can run a GitHub action. You can add the badge as well to your README. Awesome. I'm going to so do that. Someone wants to raise an issue for that, please do. That is something we should do this weekend. So I am so excited. Wow.
I hope you can get to 10 out of 10 on your security score, Eddie.
We will try. And then we'll also, once I start using it a bit more, I can also try and include that result in our report, so we can actually have maybe split it into sections. So it can be like a community section, there can be maybe a security section. We can get the results and display that. So that will be super, super interesting. So I can't wait to look into that. We definitely need to open an issue and start a discussion with the community on that. Sam, that has been like amazing. I think I need to go and like lie down afterwards. My brain has melted, just like Bob has agreed as well. Bob actually has a question, which I recognize the name. So Bob asks, testing
Oh, it's talking
security,
about the
love
Burp
it.
Suite.
But
Yes.
yes.
So the question from Bob was about Burp Suite. So Burp Suite is a quite popular what we call penetration testing tool. So it's a tool which allows to attack applications, right? So or let's say test applications in a ethical manner and discover vulnerabilities. So I do use Burp Suite, but I also use Zap, which is an OWASP project originally. And the difference is that Burp Suite is a commercial project, and OWASP Zap is a free and open source, and actually one of the most popular open source project. They kind of do the same thing. Obviously, the difference is Zap is community written, community supported, but they many years ago they started from a different scanner, and then they kind of forked from it. So there's a commercial. There is a community version of Burp Suite available as well, but it doesn't include security. It only allows you to proxy the application and actually examine all the requests and responses and do things like request manipulation manually, but it will not scan the application for security issues, whilst Zap will.
Okay, got you. And Zap, I've met Simon, I think Bennett,
Simon Bennett, is the leader of the Zap project in EDS.
Yeah, he's a really, really nice guy. I met him, I think, at a Google event in London, and he talked me through it. And they've got this heads-up display, and I was just like, "Wow, this is like awesome! It's open source, and people should definitely use it."
I will put it in the private chat, the link to Zap proxy.
Yes,
so if
please.
anyone is interested, you can share that as well. It's an absolutely awesome project.
Yes, people should definitely check it out.
And you can run it in Docker, and you can put it in your GitHub Actions. So every time when you
Oh wow.
you run a GitHub workflow, you can test your application for security issues. And there are different security issues because it will actually try to exploit the running web application. That is different. So the secret scanning and the source code scanning tools that I showed you today and dependency scanning tools, they will be called SASCA. So they're looking at static application security testing, right? So they're looking at static things like source code, right? Or your software bill of materials. Zap and Burp Suite, they are what we call DAS, called dynamic. So they are looking at vulnerabilities when the application is running, and they can discover completely different apps, because when the code is actually running, the memory, there are some vulnerabilities that you can only detect, and they can only happen at runtime.
Got you. I see. Yes, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. I'm trying to see if I can get a screenshot of how it looks on your website with the heads up display. Yeah, this is it. So this is the heads up display. It's a really nice how both on your website, it kind of shows you these as it's going through the website. Like you said, the running app, which is very, very different.
You can just browse your website, your application, and you'll see this heads up display icons lighting up, and you can hover your mouse over them and see straight away how many issues were discovered.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Sam, this has been awesome. I've got so much to do. And for those of you who want some green squares, please raise an issue to add, where have I lost it now? I think I've closed it.
So Eddie, Hub Community, the scorecard. Yep.
Yes, add the scorecard, exactly, to do it as a GitHub action, and then another issue to see if we can integrate it into the actual report. And then I think there was one earlier on. The other issue was I think to enable some more of these as well. So code scanning, we need to enable some of these and go through these. I don't think there were too many alerts.
That's right.
This one, but we need to enable them.
Right. Yes, but you still need to enable them. Yes. That's if you remember, I enabled them on my copy of your repo. But not this one, not health check. That was the other one. Good first issue finder.
Yes. So Sam, thank you so much. Any closing notes you'd like to leave us with? You've already dropped so many amazing gems, but anything else you'd like to, shout out about any of your projects, any of your talks, anything, let us know, please.
My project, if you want to shout out, is called OWASP Nettacker. I can share the link
Yes,
with you
please.
in 1 second. And it is also a security scanning tool. So this is very useful for people who have a network, right? So for example, you work in a company and you say, okay, what kind of vulnerabilities exist in my network? And this is the tool which can actually scan the whole network and find vulnerabilities there. An example that I usually give is security cameras, right? A lot of offices these days, they have cameras everywhere. Or for example, if you go on London Underground, there are CCTV cameras everywhere. Now, guess what? A lot of these cameras have default credentials like admin, right? And if you have, for example, London Underground has like thousands of these cameras. How can you scan all of them at the same time and see if you can brute force and log into them with admin password, right? So this tool will actually allow you to do it. So you can give it a list of networks or a list of IP ranges, and it will go through all of them, and it will try to scan them for all different things. But I would say one of the cool things that Nettacker does is doing brute forcing over HTTP, FTP, SMTP, and lots of other protocols. So it will try WordPress as well. Anyone using WordPress, right? So it will try to brute force its way in, and you can provide it with custom dictionary. That is another very cool open source project, which is under OWASP, and I've been presenting quite a few talks about it. So if you search on YouTube, you will find me speaking about this project.
That's amazing, Sam. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm just putting Sam's Twitter again on the screen. Do follow Sam so you can get to learn about security. It is so important, and it's something that we say, oh, tomorrow, but I think tomorrow should be today, and Sam has definitely highlighted that for us. So Sam, thank you so much again. Look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. I know everyone has enjoyed this. I really have. I've got a lot to take away. So it's been amazing. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the stream here. If you can stay on for one more minute, I will just thank you personally afterwards. Everyone, thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
It's been awesome. I look forward to part 2 next time, but it has been great. I know you're busy, so I really appreciate you taking the time. And a big shout out to people in the audience. Bob, who has been here from the beginning until the end. So Bob, thank you so much. Let us know how it goes on. Who else have we got here? Say hello in the chat. And I'll bring up the holding page for a minute. And I'll see you all soon. And Sam, I'll speak to you in a minute. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.